Something shifted, something deep, something undeniable. When Iran struck at Israel and the world stayed silent, it wasn't just another headline in a region used to conflict. It was a blow not only to Israel's defenses, but to its pride, its image of dominance, resilience, and unshakable deterrence. For decades, Israel has carried itself with a sense of strategic superiority, built on layers of intelligence, technology, and military precision. That pride wasn't arrogance, it was armor. And for the first time in a long time, that armor cracked. Iran didn't just launch missiles, it launched a challenge, direct, unapologetic, and public. The message was clear. The balance of power is shifting and the old rules no longer apply. Yet what followed may have been even more unsettling than the strike itself. The silence. No unified global outrage, no sweeping condemnations. Just the quiet hum of a world calculating its interests, watching without moving, speaking without saying much. That silence spoke volumes. It revealed more than apathy, it revealed a new era. One where boldness replaces diplomacy and power is redefined not by who speaks loudest, but by who acts first. This moment didn't just bruise a nation. It tested the conscience of the international community. It forced us to ask, when pride is broken and the world is silent, what comes next? Let's sit with what really happened. Not just what we saw, but what we felt. Because Iran didn't just launch a strike. They delivered something far more calculated, far more devastating in its intent. It wasn't just about destruction. It was about humiliation. It was about challenging the very image Israel has projected for decades. The image of being untouchable, always in control, always 3 steps ahead. This was psychological warfare at its sharpest. Iran didn't just attack Israel's military, it aimed for its pride. And whether you agree with Iran's politics or not, you can't ignore the precision of the message. You are not invincible, not anymore. For Israel, that truth cuts deep. Because pride isn't just emotion, it's identity. It's woven into every defense policy, every strategic doctrine, every speech about security and sovereignty. That pride says, we survive because we are strong. We stay safe because we strike first. No one dares test us because they know what follows. That's not just rhetoric. That's the mindset of a nation shaped by history, by trauma, by necessity. And then suddenly one act from across the border rips through all of that and says, we dared and we got through. Now, we're not just talking about missiles. We're talking about the collapse of a psychological framework. A nation that has been defined by its ability to intimidate now finds itself forced to ask a question it hasn't had to face in generations. What happens when the fear no longer works? And let's be real, this wasn't about overwhelming firepower. Iran didn't need to destroy a city or win a war. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to prove a point, to hit just enough, to show just enough to make everyone watching, friend or foe, realize that the balance has changed, that Israel is not beyond reach, that a line can be crossed, and this time it was. With precision, with intent, with pride on the table. And when pride is targeted, the wound is invisible, but it bleeds deep. That's the brilliance and the danger of psychological strikes. They're harder to measure, but their impact lingers longer than any missile crater. They haunt the strategic mind. They sow doubt in decision rooms. They change how soldiers walk into the next mission, how leaders deliver the next speech. They infect the confidence that held everything together. And if you look closely, you can see it. You can see the shift. Israel isn't just responding to a threat. It's recovering from a message. In Iran, they know that. They're not new to this game. They understand symbolism. They understand theater. And they use that understanding to flip the power dynamic, if not on the battlefield, then in the minds of those who thought they understood the rules. This wasn't recklessness. This was strategy. Calculated, intentional, and deeply rooted in one of the most dangerous forms of warfare, the war of perception. What makes this moment even more profound is that it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened with the world watching, not intervening, not reacting, just observing. And that silence, it amplifies the message. It confirms to Iran and to every actor with a grudge and a strategy that the cost of boldness might not be as high as it used to be. That maybe, just maybe, the fear that kept everyone in check is starting to fade. That silence gives power to the move. It makes the strike feel more effective. It stretches the humiliation. Because it's one thing to be struck, it's another to be struck and left to sit in it while the world quietly turns the page. And now Israel has to wrestle with that silence. Not just militarily, but emotionally, philosophically, because every nation, especially one built on survival, needs to believe it controls the narrative, that it decides the terms of engagement. But in this moment, those terms were written elsewhere, and the pen was in someone else's hand. So what do you do when your pride has been touched in front of the world? You have two choices. You can lash out and try to reclaim the illusion, or you evolve, you get honest, you'll learn more powerful field, not in how you strike back, but in how you rebuild what was shaken. You found the answers somewhere, but you have to strike back, but in how you rebuild what was shaken. And this isn't just Israel's question, it's everyone's. Because pride, unchecked, makes us brittle. It blinds us. It convinces us we are safe when we're simply untested. And when that test finally comes, what's left isn't just damage, it's truth. And truth demands a response deeper than retaliation. It demands introspection, reinvention, wisdom. So here's what you take with you. When pride is crushed, don't just rebuild what was, rebuild something stronger, something truer. Because the world doesn't respect what looks powerful, it respects what is powerful. And real power doesn't flinch when the illusion breaks. It grows when the truth shows up. Let's be honest about something most people don't want to say out loud. Israel's image of invincibility just took a hit. And it wasn't just a military moment. It was a moment of exposure. Because for decades, Israel has built its reputation on the idea that it doesn't get caught off guard, that it's always ready, always watching, always a step ahead. That image didn't come from just one war or one speech. It came from survival. It came from being surrounded, from living under threat, from building a culture where vigilance is a virtue. And that mindset carved Israel's place in the world. Nations, allies, even enemies looked at Israel as something solid, something that doesn't bend. You could question its politics, you could debate its choices, but you couldn't deny its control. But when Iran's strike landed, when it got through, the world saw something different. Not a collapse, not defeat, but a break in the illusion. A flicker of vulnerability, a moment where the mask of total control slipped. And that, in a region built on perception, is everything. Because once perception shifts, reality starts to follow. That's the part many people miss. Warfare isn't just missiles and troops. It's belief. It's belief in capability, in deterrence, in what others think will happen if they cross the line. And when a moment like this proves that line can, in fact, be crossed, the entire system of deterrence shakes. Not from the outside, from within. Think about that. Israel didn't just take damage to a military site, it took damage to its brand. And in a global stage where image can be as important as action, that damage is deep. Now questions are being whispered, not just by adversaries, but by allies. Questions like, can Israel still respond the way it used to? Can it still prevent? Can it still dominate? And that shift isn't paranoia, it's psychology. See, the mind of a nation works like the mind of a person. Confidence fuels action, doubt fuels hesitation. And right now, Israel is standing in that fragile space between pride and reckoning, between what it thought it was and what the world just saw. And here's where it gets more serious. The people saw it too. Not just the generals, not just the international community, the citizens, the people in the streets, the people who've built their lives on the promise that their government, their military, their Iron Dome would always protect them. That promise just took a hit. And once the public begins to sense fragility where they once saw strength, it creates a kind of ripple you can't always measure, but you feel it. You feel it in the tone of the evening news, in the way the next election conversation starts, in how young people view their future, and how the older generation revisits the past. It's not always loud, but it's there. A quiet question behind every confident statement. And Iran knew that. They knew exactly where to aim. Not just at infrastructure, but at identity. That's what makes this moment so pivotal. Iran didn't just want to cause damage. They wanted to cause doubt. And doubt, once it gets in, doesn't go away with just a counterstrike. It lingers. It shapes decisions. It changes the rules. Now, this isn't to say Israel is finished, far from it. Israel is resilient, experienced, strategic, but no amount of technology can fully protect a nation from the psychological cost of a pierced illusion. That has to be faced head on, not avoided, not spun, faced, because the sooner you acknowledge what's changed, the sooner you can rebuild something real, not just something that looks strong. This is where real leadership shows itself. Not in how loud you respond, but in how deeply you reflect. It's easy to retaliate. It's harder to reimagine. And that's the moment Israel is standing in right now. A moment where it must choose. Will it double down on the image that's already been cracked, or will it evolve and face the world not as a fortress, but as a force shaped by humility, wisdom, and clarity? Because let me tell you, invincibility was never the goal. Survival was. Integrity was. Legacy was. And sometimes you can only reach those things when the illusion breaks and you're forced to see the truth of what you've become. That's not weakness. That's maturity. So here's the reflection. Strength that depends on appearance will always be temporary. But strength that grows from truth, even painful truth, can last generations. The world just saw behind the curtain. And now Israel has a choice. Either fix the curtain or build something that doesn't need one. That's the kind of strength the world can trust. That's the kind of power that doesn't flinch when it's tested. Because it no longer needs to pretend. And in that honesty lies a whole new kind of pride. One not built on fear, but on purpose. Let's talk about the silence. Because sometimes what the world doesn't say is louder than anything it could. When Iran struck, when Israel's pride was publicly wounded, the expectation from many was clear. Global outrage, media condemnation, fast-moving solidarity. But that's not what happened. Instead, what followed was hesitation, careful language, strategic silence. And that silence, it wasn't just political. It was philosophical. It revealed what many governments are too careful to admit. The world doesn't always move by principle. It moves by interest. See, in moments like this, alliances get tested, not in private meetings or official statements, but in the pause between the act and the response. That pause, that's where the truth shows up. And the truth here is that the global community, especially the West, didn't respond with the certainty Israel might have once expected. It didn't rush in to affirm Israel's supremacy or to reestablish the old order. It watched, it waited, it weighed. And in doing that, it revealed something deeper, a shift in how nations see not just Israel, but themselves. Because when a country like Iran takes bold, direct action, and the global powers don't push back immediately, it signals a change. A change in what people are willing to risk. A change in how far they're willing to go to preserve the illusion of control. You've got to understand, this isn't just about military alliances. This is about moral clarity. And when that clarity fades, so does trust. Countries begin to look inward. They calculate. They ask, what does it cost us to care? And if the answer is too much, Then suddenly silence becomes policy. Let's not pretend this is new. This kind of selective response has happened before, but this time it hit differently. Because it wasn't just a question of who fired the first shot. It was a test of what the global order actually stands for. And if you look closely, you'll see that many nations, once vocal, once proud of their values, chose to retreat into convenience. And here's where it cuts deeper. Israel saw that. It felt that. A country that has long depended on the reliability of its alliances, on the quick defense of its actions and its right to security, now had to confront a new reality, that even its closest partners might hesitate, might doubt, might prioritize balance over loyalty. That hesitation is a message, a quiet one, but clear. And it isn't just Israel listening, the whole world is. Adversaries are watching how long it takes for support to arrive. Allies are wondering if the same silence would meet their moment of need. Neutral players are recalculating which side of the fence is safer now, not based on values, but based on who still stands when things get real. That's why this moment matters more than people realize. It's not just a regional flashpoint. It's a mirror. It shows us who we are when we're pressed, and it shows us how easily ideals get traded for stability. And yet, here's the paradox. That silence, as damning as it is, also offers a rare opportunity. An opportunity to re-examine who we are as a global society. What do we actually believe in? What kind of world are we willing to defend? Are we driven by convenience or by conviction? Because here's the truth. Power without principle is noise, and principle without action is silence. The space between those two is where real leadership lives. And right now we're being asked to lead. Not just militarily, not just politically, but morally. When history looks back on this moment, it won't just record the strike or the silence. It will record what we did with it. Did we let it pass? Did we let alliances quietly decay while pretending nothing changed? Or did we face the discomfort, the doubt, the challenge, and rise to something better? The world may have stayed silent in the moment, but you don't have to. We don't have to. Because every time you choose to stand for something when it's not easy, when it's not profitable, you reinforce a foundation that doesn't crack when tested. So remember this, silence might feel safe, but clarity is what builds trust. And trust between nations, between people, that's the only thing that holds the world together when everything else starts to fall apart. There's a moment in every power struggle when the rules quietly change. You don't always hear it happen. No headlines announce it. But if you're paying attention, really paying attention, you feel it. You sense it in the way one side moves with more confidence and the other side start to look over its shoulder. That's what just happened in the Middle East. The balance of power didn't just shift, it redefined itself. And the most dangerous part, it happened without permission. For years, Iran was seen as the agitator from the shadows, always working through proxies, Hezbollah, militias, cyber cells, never stepping too far into the light. That's how the world framed them. That was the narrative. And for a while, it was true. But this strike wasn't shadow work. This wasn't subtle. This was direct. This was Iran standing in the open and saying, we are here now. We're not behind someone. We're not whispering through others. This is our voice, and it's loud. That one move shattered decades of assumptions. It proved that Iran isn't just playing the game anymore. They're trying to rewrite the board. And if that doesn't make you stop and think, you're not seeing what's coming. Because boldness like that only works if you're sure the cost won't crush you. And Iran calculated, correctly or not, that the world's appetite for confrontation has changed. That Israel, and by extension its allies, would hesitate. That the silence we spoke about earlier would hold. And they were right. That's not just strategy. That's evolution. See, power isn't just about weapons. It's not just how big your army is or how many satellites you have in the sky. Power is about who moves first and who hesitates second. And Iran just flipped that order. It's like a psychological relay race. Israel, for so long, held the baton of preemptive confidence. Everyone knew if you crossed a line, they'd respond before you even finished crossing it. But now, that baton was snatched mid-stride. Iran didn't just act, they acted with audacity. That's what changes the equation. This wasn't just a challenge to Israel, this was a message to every nation watching. We're no longer on the defensive. We're not waiting for permission to act. Let me be clear, this wasn't just about military tactics, it was about presence. Iran claimed its place at the center of the table not by invitation but by force of will. That's how realignments begin, not in conference rooms but in bold actions that leave others trying to catch up. But here's the philosophical core of it all. What happens when boldness starts being mistaken for legitimacy? When we start accepting new rules just because they were written with conviction? That's the danger. Not just that Iran made a move, but that the world might start normalizing it. Because over time, if bold actions go unanswered, they stop being outliers, they become precedents. And that's how empires fall, not by defeat, but by erosion. This is the warning that lives inside the moment. It's not just that a strike occurred, it's that it worked. It disrupted the expected response. It shifted the psychological ground beneath a long-standing power structure. And it told every future actor, you can do this too, if you're just bold enough. So now the question isn't whether power has shifted. It has. The real question is, will anyone do anything about it? Because if we keep pretending the old rules still apply, we're going to be unprepared for the new ones being written right in front of us. The time to recognize that shift is now, not in the next strike, not when alliances start fraying. Now, we are witnessing a change that didn't come from a treaty or an election. It came from a moment of boldness that was met with hesitation. And in that gap, the New World Order began to sketch its first lines. So let me leave you with this. The ground beneath us is not shaking because of weapons. It's shaking because of silence, because of hesitation. And because boldness stepped into the void where certainty used to live. And if we don't fill that void with clarity, conviction, and truth, someone else will. So now we stand at the edge of all that's been revealed. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a revelation, a test of pride, of perception, of power. Iran didn't just fire a weapon, they fired a message. One that cut through airspace, through strategy, through the myth of invincibility. And the world's response? Silence. Careful, calculated, telling silence. In that silence, something profound was exposed. Not just about Israel, not just about Iran, but about us. About the kind of world we've allowed to take shape. A world where boldness can be louder than justice and hesitation speaks louder than words. What happens now isn't up to one nation. It's up to all of us. Because the balance of power doesn't just shift on battlefields. It shifts in boardrooms, in classrooms, in conversations, in choices. Every day we either reinforce illusion or we choose to confront the truth. And here's the truth, we can't lead with fear and expect peace. We can't stay silent and expect respect. We can't cling to old images and expect new outcomes. So I'll leave you with this. When boldness challenges pride and silence threatens principle, the world doesn't need more spectators, it needs more voices. Yours included.